Wow, we're already at episode 4 of this series, or this mini-series on entrepreneurship. And I think we've had 3 wonderful sessions to lead us to this final one. And as I concluded the last one, I mentioned that this is probably one of the more important ones, although all of them are important. Because this is where you get your money, and this is where you pay for your lunch and your dinner and you put your bread on the table, right? So the pitch in this case is, how do we raise money, or where do we go out and raise money? So one step closer to launching, we have a perfect idea, hopefully. We have a perfect product and a perfect team. But how about we get to the perfect backers? In other words, how do we fund our venture? And one way of securing investors, one way is to secure investors. And in order to do that, we have to make the perfect pitch. A business pitch is a business plan that you present to potential investors to secure funding. The pitch is meant to help you explain your business to investors and to convince them to invest in your idea or growth of your enterprise. One of the best ways to deliver a business pitch is by using visual aids, as you would have done a few weeks ago, right? And so that you can convince your audience or make your audience more attentive and interested in what you're saying. Of course, delivering a successful business plan or a business pitch starts with a thorough written business plan. And unlike in the movies, this is not sketched on a napkin or in the back of a matchbox. This is an actual document that you need to formulate and then eventually go and present. So from there, it's up to you to identify what makes your business valuable and worth investing in. But remember a few tips. One is, tell a real customer story. We've spoken about this before in the previous 3. Bring that into your business plan. Outline your business model. Make sure your presentation is crystal clear to anyone and everyone. Talk about yourself. This is authenticity, right? Address competition head on. Give the numbers that are behind your numbers and show your product, even if it's a sketch or a prototype. And the expert that we brought on today to help us with that is our very special guest, Xolile, who is capable in advising us on how to make the perfect pitch. Xolile is the CEO of the Black Umbrellas. COO, sorry, did I say CEO? I'm going to get into trouble, okay.
Unless you're promoting me.
Yeah, automatic promotion, yeah. Is the COO of the Black Umbrellas and holds an MBA from Gibbs. He's also a certified financial services and certified internal auditor, as well as a member of the Institute of Directors. But coming from the Black Umbrellas background and the work that they do, we thought he is the right person to help guide us in this process of how to do the perfect pitch. Xolile, thank you very much. I hope you help us through this process.
No, thank you, Hussein. I suppose you've already outlined just some of the things we're going to be talking about today. I'll go a little bit deeper.
Yes.
Just in terms of what the perfect pitch, sort of some of the things that you can do going towards a perfect pitch. Of course, there's no perfection, but what we're talking about here is, making it as good as you can, owning it, and kind of like making it your own. So I think you guys have heard of the different types of pitches, right? So like an elevator pitch, you hear some of the words, like an elevator pitch. So an elevator pitch basically is, the situation is you walk into an elevator, here's a potential funder, and you literally have the time between when the doors close to when the doors open for you to kind of pitch the idea to them. It's the most difficult one to do because it's short. You don't have the luxury of time. So you basically have to do a very quick intro, who you are, what your business idea is about, how much funding are you looking for, and how can the investor sort of benefit from investing in your business in 1 minute. So,
and in Regent's case, which only has 2 floors, it's 35 seconds.
well, clearly, well, in 35 seconds, the least you can say is, "I'm black collar, give me money." I think in 35 seconds, that's probably the best you can do. Then there's the more common one that you'll tend to see because it's practical, which is the short form pitch. So this generally will last about 5 to 10 minutes. So in 5 to 10 minutes, I think you've got probably enough time to sort of give the person an idea of what it is that you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, which is super critical. And then how can the person sort of get involved? So what's your call to action once they've sort of heard your pitch? And then if you are doing a longer pitch, then it's called the long form pitch. And there we try to follow the 10, 20, 30 principle. So which is your slides must not be more than 10 slides. You must try and keep your presentation to within 10 slides. The part where you're talking must not be more than 20 minutes. Because remember, people have got very short attention spans, right? And then also another very interesting thing that people do is they do slides, but the font is like very tiny.
Very small.
And so now, you find that people cannot sort of read, what you've written on that page. So the guidance then is that you just try and keep your font to about 30. So meaning that it's going to be very few words. So it has to be like more about you doing the talking. And the slides sort of like being like just a support system to what it is that you are talking about. Right. So I think then as Hussein had kind of mentioned it, I'll try to reference your idea as best as I remember it. Okay. But I mean, feel free to sort of jump in where you can to sort of tell me more, like maybe where I felt that maybe you could have said more about that part of your pitch or your presentation or your business plan, rather. Okay. So the first element, I suppose, that we need to look at is what problem is your service trying to solve, which I understood from your business plan is that you want to ensure that children in township schools have got the same level of access to sport as kids in model schools. Yes, correct. But what I wanted to sort of challenge you guys with on that is to say that you could have gone more on maybe pitching it as far as saying private schools. Why not? So that's the problem you're trying to solve. And I think, as I was thinking about it in my mind, I'm like, sport, it depends also which sport we're talking about. Yeah. Because, I mean, as you know, sport tends to require facilities, of which in your business plan, you're talking about the fact that on the one hand, you'll be trying to provide facilities, but on the other hand, you'll be trying to run programs. And what I felt on that is that that's a big ask.
Now, if
it's a ginormous ask.
Maybe I could pitch in there. The kind of sports that we feel that we could bring to the townships. Obviously, there are no facilities for those sports, but now I think we went through it on the design pitch, where Mr. Hussein was saying, sometimes, yes, we can see that as a problem, but maybe we can find innovative ways of solving the problem. What about maybe just transporting those kids from where they come from to a location where their pitch will be found? So it's those dynamics that come into play.
No, so I've had the pleasure in my life of being involved in a sport. I don't know if I can mention it.
Yeah, you can.
Cricket. Yeah. And cricket it's a very facilities heavy sport, and also it needs a lot of equipment, for the actual individual child to kind of play, as you would know. So there again, the challenge is, being close to a cricket pitch that will allow you that when you are competing with children who've got those facilities at their school. Okay, example. If you are doing your bowling if you're doing your bowling on cement pitch, right? It's different than if you're doing your bowling on the normal grass top pitch.
Yeah, on the mat.
If you're doing your bowling on the mat, it's different, right? The ball bounces different. And then you find now that when you go to a school where they've got a grass, when you go to a school where they've got a grass pitch, the issue that you have is that now your performance drops because you used to having the ball bouncing very nicely on your cement pitch. So meaning that even when the kids are practicing, you need to allow them that access to the same kind of pitch that they'll be competing with when they're competing with the Model C schools or the private school kids, So I think I did get a good idea about what the problem was, but it's a two-pronged problem.
Okay.
And I think what I felt you guys need to kind of be clear on is, are you trying to build facilities or are you trying to run sporting programs? Because the two financial requirements, I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but getting a facility into a township school easily can be $1 million plus. There's those very nice ones for the multi-use courts. And I know that those were going for about R1 million each. But what was nice though with them is that you could play about 4 or 5 sports on them. So those are some of the ideas maybe on the facility side, so that you guys can get more bang for buck. Is that you try and go for those facilities that multi-purpose kind of facilities.
Yeah. So just to guide you, so that's one of the discussions that we had in the first session about the idea, right? It can be as broad as they want to, but we sort of said to them, hone in on one or two and focus on that, because you're not going to be able to address everything out there.
Correct.
It's just too big. The hole is just too deep.
Correct.
And so I think they sort of decided, and they'll make the final decision, that it's going to be more about provision of sporting activity rather than a facility. But ultimately, that decision will be theirs.
No, which is good then, because if what you're saying is that you're going for the programs rather than involving yourselves deeply into the facilities, I think you probably will have you'll gain the traction a bit quicker. And then later, once your program is sort of at a certain stage and you're able to attract the correct kind of funding, then you can start talking about even saying that, look, why don't you put a facility? Because the program now has gotten to the point that it's not economically viable to transport those children, from township to township or from township to a Model C school. So I'll move on to the next element of trying to present your perfect pitch, which is to strip it down to the essentials. I think we've already spoken a little bit about that, to say that less is more in a pitch. Presenting a simple idea, one that a person can understand, is what you're trying to go for. Because the moment you are adding too many things to it, because you are feeling like you want to give value probably to the person that you're talking to, so you want to add all sorts of things to kind of make it look fancy, that's not necessarily the way to go. You hone in, I think as Hussein had said, you hone in on exactly what it is that you want to do. You focus on that niche. And that's and that's what's going to sell your idea, because when people think about black collar, they must be like, black collar, those are the guys that run the what program, right? Yeah. So it's simple that they associate you with the idea that you're trying to push, right? So keeping it to those bare essentials is good, and also prioritizing what's more important to you, because again, in a business plan, there's a laundry list of things that are important to you. But again, when you're doing a pitch, you just want to stick to those basic elements that are important, so that then the person that's making the decision on the money side can be like, no, this is an idea I can buy. All right. So another one that I found interesting reading through your material was on your business model, to sort of talk about, where the money is going to come from, and then how are you going to spend it. But then the third part being, what's in it for me, for the funder. Because when I was reading that part of it, you guys were saying that you are targeting sporting sporting good organizations or shops that are making a turnover of less than 51 million rand, I think it was.
50 million.
50 million. So can you maybe just take me a little bit through that why were you limiting yourselves to people that are making less than 50 million?
No,
No, we were
less,
saying
it's
more
more
than
than
50
50
million.
million annually.
Annually. We were saying we'll be targeting big businesses that will be making more than 50 million annually. So initially, those were the people that we were targeting in order for them to support our cause. But as we went through these sessions, about 3, I think what was shown to us was that this thing can even go broader. And we discussed even that let's say, for instance, maybe if we had to make an example, black celebrities that are around in our country, because they come from almost the same place where we come from, it will be easier also to pitch to such guys. And also, there are people who are influential themselves. If they can buy into the idea, then something might come out from them.
Yeah, then maybe I think what could have happened is that sign, that sign bigger than or smaller than,
bigger and smaller than.
it could have been facing the wrong
Maybe
direction.
equal.
Because when I was reading
It's
it,
just saying less than
it was
50
saying
million.
less than 50 million, and I sort of didn't understand, like why would you only be limiting yourself to people that are making less than 50 million? It kind of didn't. I didn't really understand. So again, I guess as part of the business model, it's always important, of course, to talk about what it is that you sell or what service do you provide, to whom do you provide that service, how much do they pay? So those children that you're going to be taking through this, are you going to make them pay anything? You need to be clear about that. Like, are their parents going to pay something, or is all of the funding going to be based on the funders? So those kinds of decisions are decisions that you need to make up front. It helps, actually, by the way, when you get the kids to pay a little bit of something.
Yeah.
A little bit of something, just so that they can take the whole thing seriously. So that it's not just like it's free. So whether I participate or I don't participate,
they don't care.
it doesn't matter. And even the parents, if the parent has paid a little bit of something, I don't know, 20 rand, 50 rand, it doesn't have to be a lot of money. But now the parent will also remind the child that, hey, I paid for that thing on the Saturday, you better go.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, on your side that in terms of the funding that you sort of raised, you're going to be spending so much more. Yeah.
Okay.
And then also what's important is how do you get paid? So part of the problem I think that we have also as small businesses is not being able to accept payments, because you don't want to be working with cash, especially now that you're in COVID times. Cash is not the best way. So, I mean, something like
one of those devices.
Devices, and there's many of them now. I think you've seen them in the market where people can just use their cards, to tap and pay. So that's important. I think another part in this business model where sort of I was asking myself, who's the client, who's the customer, right? Because what you actually have, because it's an NPO, what you actually have is you have a beneficiary, right, which is the children, and then you have a funder.
Correct.
So I think even the language that you use in your pitch, it needs to be very clear about, here I'm talking about my funder. So your customer is always the person who pays you.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So in this case, because we're dealing with an NPO, the person who pays you is the funder. So you need to be clear about what their needs are, what they're trying to get out of this. So are they doing this as part of their corporate social investment, for example?
Recognition or something.
Yes, or are they doing it for like whatever another purpose can be? And then you make sure that in running your program, you've satisfied those needs. So I know, for example, funders that they're very big on reports. So when you're having your sporting event, you need to make sure that you're taking the necessary photos. You've prepared a proposal up front to say that we are doing a derby between this school, and this school. This is how much it's going to cost us. This is when it's going to happen, etc. And then you make sure that those reports get back to the funder as soon as, or whatever timelines, sort of that you guys have agreed on. And then
Can I just come
do you want
in
to jump in there?
I think that's maybe something we've ignored, right? So maybe the cap that we were originally was trying to get funding for the entity. Give us a big pool of money, whatever that big pool is, we will do different things.
Yeah.
But maybe the approach in the beginning could be a very specific one.
Correct.
Because you want to win confidence, you want to go to show delivery, when you want to go to the second fund. So you're not going to get that one, what would the right word be? Sweetheart, big teddy.
They're called an angel investor.
No. Besides the angel, they're not the one big sweetheart. They're just going to make you a check and sort you out, right? You may need to have many small ones to get to the table of the big boy, right? And so the second approach may be, we've got this event planned at a school or between 2 or 3 schools in the location or in the township, and we're looking funding for a very specific thing. I'm not sure what's happening nowadays. I'm out of school for many years, and my children are out of school for a number of years as well. Do we still have sporting inter-school sports?
They do.
Yeah,
Do we still do
Those
that?
colors.
Yeah, in sort of location township schools.
Most of the time, what happens is the schools in the township, they would make it in sort of like a trip to go somewhere.
Somewhere else. Yeah. So I'm just thinking aloud. If your proposal was for a very specific event, rather than I need to pay 1,000 coaches, here's a program, whatever it is, support this event, and then sell the benefits. So your pitch cap is different, your speech deck is different for the audience that you're talking to.
Correct.
So maybe it's something to consider, right? So don't necessarily go for the big sweetheart deal. I think let's start off with a small one, build your reputation, and then when you're ready, you possibly can go to the same guy who funded you the first one and say, look, how successful we did the first 3.
Correct.
We're now ready for the next big check type of a thing. Just consider that, right? Just consider that. Carry on.
Yeah, that's a very good. And also understand that you're probably going to get funding from multiple funders. So it's not just one. But you need to make sure that your administration is good to be able to manage those relationships. Because I think very often, you said you've got 4 employees. I think that are part of the...
We are 5.
You are 5 altogether. So what usually happens, there's front office and there's back office in any business, right? So you usually find that most of those 5 are involved in the front office, which is the running of the sporting program, right? But nobody's taking care of the back office, which is the administration, the finances, the reporting, the monitoring and evaluation of the success of your program, etc. So just make sure that if you don't have resources necessarily dedicated to it, but make sure that you set aside time to make sure that those back-end processes are done. Because remember, if the people have given you the money and then they don't get their report on time, remember they're also reporting to somebody else to say that, hey, we gave these guys 2 million rand, but now we don't know what they did with it because they still haven't given us the report.
Forget 2 million rand. They'll hold you as equally accountable for 2,000 rand as they would for 2 million rand. And it may seem petty to you, but the reporting on the 2,000 rand, the credibility that you get out of that is just as equal, as important as when you give it to the 2 million rand one. So that reporting is very important and how you report. The bigger corporates come with a lot more responsibility. And sometimes we need to set up another entire department just to look after that reporting structure.
Correct. No, so that reporting is more important than you think.
Yeah.
Because in fact it's as important as the pitching that we're talking about. Because pitching is about getting the money. Yeah. But now that report is sort of like a receipt to say that thank you, you gave me the money, but this is what I did with it. And then it just closes the loop there very nicely. So I'll move on then, I think, to the next element, which is making sure that you keep your pitch very clear, right? You need to keep it short and sweet and straight to the point, right? There must be no wasted words in the pitch that you're kind of making. You mustn't waffle. As you mustn't be shooting blanks. You must make every sentence count, and that's why it's important to practice your pitch. whether in front of the mirror or in front of, and in fact, you also need to practice the pitch to people that don't know what you're talking about. Because remember, if it's the 5 of you guys pitching to each other, you'll keep doing that. Because why? Because you guys know what you're talking about. But to an outsider, who doesn't know what you're talking about, it's the words that you say that are sort of going to give them an idea of what it is that you do, why you do it, and then what are you hoping that they must do with what you've sort of given them. So that short, sweet, straight to the point, and then well practiced. So if I woke you up in the middle of the night and I said, do your pitch, you must already be able to say that, hi, we are black collar, we are about democratizing sports in the township space, and sort of equalizing, promoting equal access to sports for children in townships. So those must be just some of the key phrases and key words that you have, so that at any point, at any given point in time when you need to talk about it, you can,
In a taxi, in a way.
Anyway, you must be boring. You must be boring because you must be. No, not this guy again.
No, not again.
This guy is coming with his black collar things.
You'll be surprised where the elevator pitch is. So it doesn't always happen in an elevator. It's in the queue when you're standing at Pick and Pay. The person in front of you, the person behind you, you overheard something. Say, hey, you know what? This is who we are. This is what we do. Would you be interested? So the elevator pitch isn't always in the elevator.
It can be a taxi pitch. in the context that you are.
Yeah.
So, and then another very important element of the perfect pitch is talking about yourself. As people, I think we're very shy to talk about ourselves because we've been raised to sort of be humble and not to boast. Because again, maybe it's a cultural thing, but when you're doing a pitch, or you are pitching your idea, it's very, very important to talk about yourself. So to talk about your team, because people buy you as a person first. Your credibility is what then sells your business idea. So the business idea comes second to who you are. So it's important then to kind of blow your own horn, talk about the successes that your team has had, talk about your story, your journey of when this idea started, it started because I was at a sporting event, and what I realized is that those children, the 2 sporting events maybe that I went to, I saw the differences in them, and sort of it pulled my heart to say that, but why can't these children, have an equally successful sporting program like these children? Are you with me?
And being authentic about it, right?
Very authentic.
Don't invent a story because the story will find you later. Right? So be authentic about it.
So here it's important to not only tell the story but to also show, to demonstrate sort of the idea that you're trying to convey, right? And also to talk about people invest also more in a team than they invest in an individual. So I think again it's a very good thing that you guys are already a team of 5. Because then with a team of 5, it becomes a more credible thing to say that, no, they've got the manpower to sort of make this thing happen. And if you need additional resources, of course, you can always bring people on a temporary basis or on a volunteer basis, which, there's a big volunteer movement in the sporting world, right? And then, after talking about your team, of course, you talk about the successes that you've already had because you need to already have done something. This can't be like a brand new off-the-ground idea. Well, we've never actually done anything, but we are coming to ask you for money to do something. So it's important to show some of your success stories that you've had, whether it's within this venture or in fact in previous things that you've been involved with. Because, it so happens that, people used to work maybe for the Department of Sports and Recreation or used to work as a coach, at a particular school. And this is the program that I ran there, and then we felt that we need to turn it into an NPO and sort of do it on a bigger scale, because that's what your business is about.
So that takes us back to what we discussed in the previous episode. Do something, even at sort of MVP principle, right? Minimum viable. Just do something, learn from it, record it, take photos of it, get testimonials for it. That will help you in building your case. Everybody thinks that they're going to solve the next world problem. And
They can't solve
the problem is not solved in a piece of paper. Right? It's actually, show me now. You understand? Sorry.
So what you'll find is that a venture only starts gaining traction after about 3 years. So it's not in those beginning years, once you've started that everything already starts going exactly the way that you want it to go. It usually takes about 2 to 3 years, because in the first year, everybody is watching that. Is this a flash in the pan kind of idea? In the second year, they're starting to say, okay, they've got the history of last year because they ran 3 or 4 events that they let us know about on their social media, on their website. Second year, now people are like, oh, maybe there's something here. But by the third year, then you guys are sort of coming across as your industry leading experts in the field that you're in, or one of at least the top contenders, because you've been doing this thing for 3 years now. You've hosted 8 to 12 events, kind of galas or events at that stage that you can show. You've documented that very well, and you're able to show it in the materials, in your marketing materials. Right, so that all talks to about the successes that you sort of had as an organization, and maybe some of the struggles also. Don't be shy to share the struggles, to say that in the first year this is what we struggled with, this is how we overcame it. Because then I think what that shows the funders also is that you guys are able to take on. Anything. Yeah, you're not trying to hide anything. You're being realistic, right? And you're giving a balanced view of the idea that you're pitching. Because again, if you're only talking about the positives, then in the back of the mind of any, a business person, they're asking themselves, but this is not realistic. Like, you don't just start and then there's no problems and everything is going hunky-dory and everything is perfect and the children are coming through, the parents are coming through, the community is coming through. It doesn't happen like that. You need to be talking about, how did you get the buy-in from the communities? How did you get the buy-in from the parents? All the support structures. How did you get the buy-in from the local municipality? Maybe if you're going to be using some of the public facilities for running those events, etc. Right. Then I guess I'll move on to another element that, as I was reading your pitch deck, I don't think you guys went deep enough maybe into this one, talking about your competition.
That one, seriously, yeah, we even discussed it. I think was it me and you only, or with the other members, that we have not studied the competition as much as we would have liked to study the competition. In fact, we also thought, who is our competition?
You know what it is? We try to put ourselves just next to the people who kind of do what
sports
we do.
Managers.
Yeah, who kind of do what we do. But I will be honest from my side, I've never seen let's say a company well known enough, or just anyone saying, we're actually entering the schools and we're doing this and this and this and this, trying to help the schools. I think it's always been focused on the communities as a whole, saying, okay, we can put a soccer pitch right here and the whole community can come play with it. But we need to focus on the fact that in order for sports to actually kind of exist, you have to start it from a very young age. And a lot of the times kids learn this from school, which they have extracurricular activities in schools, or they have it as a subject somewhere where they have like LO or whatever they call it. And in that subject, they kind of have those activities where they get to play netball or rugby or run for a little bit, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm actually interested in this. I might actually take a shot at it. And I think our competition, maybe we haven't studied it as enough, but I haven't seen anyone going as far as
we want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not there.
That's what we're saying. I don't think we've studied it enough.
Yeah. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So you really need to be thorough about understanding because remember, when you're looking for that funding, you're not the only person looking for the funding.
True.
Right? And also, when people are thinking about competition, you are thinking about competition in the space that you're in, forgetting that there's other social enterprises that are also your competition, even though they're not in the same industry as you, like early childhood development, right? As an example.
Indirect competition.
So there's indirect competition there because all of you guys are looking for funding
From the same source.
from the same sources, right? And therefore it's important to maybe even if you know which geographies, for example, that you want to start in, and sort of doing a deep dive then into that geography to say that, okay, if we're talking about Tembisa as a township, where we're targeting the schools in Tembisa, or if we're talking about Orange Farm as a township, and those are the schools that we're trying to target, what else is going on there? What else is going on from an NPO space? What are the other NPOs that operate there? What do they do? What is government doing in that same space? Because if already there's a strong program going, you may find that your idea is kind of difficult to fund if people are already funding something else. And also, as much as I'm talking here about competition, in the NPO space, collaboration is a bigger word than competition. Right, in the NPO space, because remember we are doing things for the public benefit, all of us.
We put our hands together.
Right. So meaning that if your idea can amplify the idea of somebody else, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with you guys working together. So, for example, while you are looking for your competition or other people within your space, maybe you find an organization that puts up pitches. That puts up tennis courts or puts up sports fields, right? That's what they do. But now the problem that they have is that once they put it up, then there are no programs that run on that, and then it goes into disuse, and then it means that money then is wasted. Enter black collar, saying on some, whoa, we're here. What we do is we run sporting programs. So once you guys have built that facility, then you can hand it over to us, and then we can then run the programs that will make sure that facility doesn't go into disuse.
How about, I'm asking the question, so maybe not related. So complementary NPOs. Somebody does a feeding program. So there's an activity that's linked, because a feeding program is an organized activity.
It is.
Students are ready-made there. So your effort is minimized in terms of organizing. You're just doing the activity. Or a tuition program. There's plenty of people who do tuition programs in townships, right? Again, they've put in the effort of bringing the students in. You're just giving sort of an allied service or an extension of a service to the same group of people. And you're not competitors to each other. The value to the potential sponsor is, I'm getting two things done at once, type of a thing. Anyway, it's some thinking that we need to do. But key, collaboration.
Collaboration is a very big word. So you need to know who the other players are. So there's a nice tool, I suppose, when you're comparing yourself to your competition, which is the putting into a matrix who your competitors are, and then what the features are of what it is that you're doing, and then sort of ticking that I've got this, they've got this, I've got this, they've got this, I don't have this, they don't have this, I've got this. You understand? So when you're talking about the features of your program, then that's how you are able to, just looking at
Evaluate yourself.
Evaluating yourself against those people, to say that, okay, are these guys doing exactly what we're doing? Or do we have a unique value proposition that we are sort of coming with? And that is the actual then key thing that's going to pull people to want to work with us, whether it's our collaborators, whether it's the beneficiaries that are part of our program. Because if they're already participating in another one, why are they going to want to participate in yours, right? So then it's important then to be able to show those features, and that collaboration that we spoke of adds to your features list. So if you're working with people that do have a feeding scheme, then that's more features that you can add to your program, because those are your partners. If you've got a partner that does transportation, again, that's another value, so that you focus. Remember earlier we said that you need to be very specific about what it is that you do. You can't be a multiple, every
functional.
Yeah, or what I always call, you can't be a pizza. making 8 people happy at the same time. You need to be able to just hone in on that one thing that you do and do it very well, right? Then, again, another part that I felt you guys could have done maybe a bit better was your numbers and your numbers behind your numbers, right? So when I was looking at your 5-year financial projection, I was like, these numbers are very optimistic.
You would have just take out the check immediately and give it to them.
Yeah, then I'm like, if I signed off, and also what I found interesting is that you guys had a surplus. In every year you had a surplus. There was no 1 year where you had a deficit. It was surplus all the way.
We worked it out on the annual growth rate, which was 30% basically. Yeah, basically that. Also, we work on how, let's say, we try and be optimistic and say, maybe this year we have something left over, we reinvest it and we work on that number as well. And I think that's why it looks like it does accumulate.
Yeah, so it goes back then to what I said about being balanced. Because remember, the people that you're pitching to, you are not the first people that is pitching to them, right? They've seen it all. And the moment what your numbers are showing and what they understand about the space, the moment the two don't tally, then they're like, no, these guys, they don't really know what they're talking about. And this part is the most important part here, because remember, when we started this conversation, we said that the whole reason why you are pitching your business plan is in order to secure funding.
That is true.
So if you are not able then to show how you're going to manage your numbers, or what you think your numbers are, what they're going to look like, then you can have done all the other things very well. If this is where your presentation kind of falls short, then the whole thing can then happily fall apart. Because I was going to say also that in the NPO space, what people don't understand, some of the challenges, right, are the money that comes in. Are you going to spend 100% of it on the beneficiaries, or are you going to leave a little bit of it for your administration?
Yeah,
right?
Obviously, administration has to be to be allocated.
It may be obvious to you, but then what then happens is that when people are going to pitch for the funding, they forget to add that piece to say that if you give us 100 Rand, we are going to use 8 to 12 Rand to run the administration of what we're doing, and then we're going to use the other 88 Rand directly to the beneficiaries now. Because if you're saying that I'm going to receive 100 Rand and spend the entire 100 Rand on the beneficiaries, how are you going to transport yourselves? How are you going to keep your office open? How are you going to pay your salaries? Right? How are you going to pay for the facility where you guys have your offices? You see? So with your funders also, it's very important for them to become part of that conversation. And in fact, in certain instances, even specifically fundraise, for your administration costs. To say that this money that we're asking you for is to run our administration, because last year, for example, our volunteer program attracted 5,000 volunteers, and we had to buy them bibs, we had to feed them for the day, we had to transport them from the different places that they were going to in order for us to be able to run our event. You see, those are not program costs. Those are administrative costs, that what it takes to run your organization. And it's important then when you're showing your numbers to be able to also show those numbers, right? Because in the NPO space also, if you get 100 Rand and you spend 100 Rand, you've done a good thing. You are number one, because I won't have that feeling that these people took my money, said they're going to do something, and then didn't do it. Because let's say of the 100 Rand, you guys spent only 60 Rand. So in your mind, maybe you're thinking, but we've been efficient. But now the person will say that, then why didn't you ask me for 60 Rand if that's what you needed? Do you get it? Yeah. So meaning that then, even when it comes to the way that you spend the money, usually about 5 to 10% is usually within reason. To say that you gave us 100 Rand, we spent 95 Rand, so we had a 5 Rand surplus. Or it can also go the opposite way, where you ask for 100 Rand, but you find yourself spending 105 or 110 Rand. But if you find yourself spending 150 Rand, then again, it means that you didn't ask for enough money upfront, or there's elements you didn't consider, like for example, your administrative costs, that you now are finding yourselves in the hole. And then what do the funders say? These guys don't know how to run their organization. It will be difficult for us to keep supporting them, right? There's a part when you're coming up with your financial model called assumptions, right? So meaning that these are the conditions under which you prepared the numbers, or these are the conditions that you assumed, because maybe you don't have that information. So where you've got the information, please, you put in the actual information. But where you don't have the information, so for example, you said that you assumed a 30% growth. So have you looked at maybe some of your competitors and whether they've been able to achieve a 30% growth rate, yes or no? So is that a realistic growth rate, yes or no? You with me?
Yeah.
So it's important then that you prepared your financial numbers, you prepared your 5-year projection, but also it's important to give your list of assumptions that we're assuming, imagine you had done a pitch just before COVID, right? So your assumption there would be that I'm assuming that everything is running as per normal. Then COVID hits, everybody's sitting at home. You're sitting with somebody's money. But now you then had not said to that person, I'm assuming normal operating conditions. So please understand that this COVID thing is abnormal, and therefore you cannot expect me to deliver the way I would have delivered had I not had these COVID restrictions. Right? When we get back then to things opening up like what they're doing now, that things are opening up again, then we can go back to assuming some kind of normality. Right? So then again, that talks to giving that balanced view for the person who's going to be a funder, and giving them the comfort that, these guys, I sort of buy into their story. It sounds realistic, So last but not least, as we end the conversation, is about showing your product. So I think we did speak about those reports. So those reports, of course, there's the written report, that would probably look something like your business plan, kind of, like a Word document.
Yeah.
But then you can also do presentations, you can do videos where you are showing like
events.
You are showing an event, right? So a video of an event. So if as part of your pitch, you are able to maybe show a 1-minute video that sort of talks about you guys organizing the kids, putting them onto the buses, driving them to the place where the event happened, showing a few snippets of the competitions that took place on the day. Of course, the important part, the prize giving, sort of showing the prize giving, and then in the end, maybe having that bus driving away and taking the kids home. Again, that's the feel good, right? So that's the getting the people to give you that buy-in.
Emotional.
Sort of, giving that emotional element to your pitch, right? Because at the end of the day, people are driven by emotions. And therefore, if you're able to strike the right chord, you are credible, you've told your real story, you've kept it short and sweet and straight to the point, you've given what your business model is, you've made it clear, you've spoken about your team, you've spoken about the successes of your team, you've analyzed your competitive landscape, you've spoken about your numbers, and now you're showing what it is exactly, which is why we had said that 3-year span. Yeah, that 3-year span, right? Where you're showing that, look, we did one. Here, we've done it. It was not pretty, maybe in the beginning, but we've done one. And with every successive one, it's just gotten better and better. And also showing maybe some of your partners in the presentation to say that we're partnering with so-and-so and so-and-so also. Don't be shy to talk about that, because then people love to join onto something that's already kind of working. Yeah. So I think,
well, it's opening up some discussion, and I think I'd like to have a little bit more discussion. But let's start off with the two of them first. Some questions from you before I jump in with a few.
My question is, when you, let's say, prepared the pitch and everything, I struggle to fit in where to put everything. Basically, like how to start. Like, do I start with my story, or do I start with getting to the point and then moving on, or like I want to, the flow of it. Like, where do I start and where do I end? The order of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, those are things that you can research, like because different audiences need different pitches, right? And you need to first, before you are doing your pitch, you don't have one pitch for everybody, right? So you first need to understand who your audience are that you're sort of talking to. Because remember, you may even have to pitch this idea to the community that you're going to be serving. And for them, it's important, for example, to highlight what the benefits are going to be to them. And I know in your pitch and your business plan, you guys had gone into the fact that you're keeping these kids off the streets, you are trying to reduce crime, you are trying to make sure that their time is occupied, you are trying to give them skills, right? So if you're pitching them to a community, it would be important to highlight those things up front and then sort of ask the community what you want the community to then do. Because a pitch to a community is not to get money out of them, but it's to get them to participate. Whereas if you are doing that pitch to a funder, the idea with the funder is to say that, okay, this is what we do, this is what's in it for you, right? And then this is the amount of that you're looking for.
Can I just come in? So I will latch on to that point, right? I think when we talk of pitch, for those of you who watch these reality shows on TV, then we normally think of what they call the Shark Tank, or the Dragon's Den, or the Unicorn Challenge, right? And those are made for TV shows, but I'm sure they are real type of ones as well,
like realistic,
like Apprentice type of a thing, right? So they are real ones, but they are at a completely different level from what I think we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so I want to mention that in passing, just to say that we're not necessarily talking of a pitch at that level at this stage, number one. Number two, something that we raise now is about your audience. So I've got 4 or 5 points. So you could be pitching to an individual, community, a spaza, a supermarket in the community, or a corporate. And each of those are different. You're not going to go to the spaza or to the individual necessarily with a PowerPoint slide and sit with the person and talk to him. There's a different approach and a different style and a different appeal that you're going to make to different communities, right? And of course, it's also about time and also what you want to extract from them.
Correct.
Right? So just bear that in mind as well. I think the idea is to get started and not necessarily to plan for the Shark Tank and Dragon Den. I'm not saying you shouldn't be ambitious to get there, but start building your confidence, start building your pitch deck, start building your approach with the lower hanging fruit, especially in your context. It may be different for many of our viewers who may have a technology type of application or a technology type of...
or a for-profit entity.
Correct. Their target may be different, their appeal may be different, right? Yours is different. How do you approach that? So don't ignore the lower people. I think we mentioned it in one of the previous episodes. The issues that you're trying to address, people in the community can associate with it more directly than somebody sitting in corporate South Africa somewhere. Although corporate South Africa draws the people from the community. But a spaza shop knows the issues of loitering in the community. So if I get your kids off the road, give me oranges. That's what you're asking for. Sponsor a box or a bag of oranges and we're going to keep the kids occupied. Go to the next spaza, whatever it is, lollipops, I don't know. You need to think around that, right? But your pitch necessarily is not at the Dragon's Den, Shark Tank type of level. So
basically, what you're saying is we have to research our customers, potential funders.
It's so. I think, as we had said, that it's not just about the funders. Remember, they are collaborators. They are beneficiaries. So you need to know kind of like who am I talking to and what do I want out of them.
And all your pitches isn't about money, which I think is an important one. So in many communities, the consultation of trying to get them to be part of it, right? To support it. What's your agenda? Why do you want to take our young kids? What's the buy-in? Because once you get them, and I think Tasneem talked about that in episode 1, right? They become your ambassadors to drive the people to it. Hey, there's an activity happen, go and do it, right? Or go and participate in it. So different pitches for different purposes. Yes, you need money to do your thing, should be very specific, or you need goods or whatever, fruit and vegetables or whatever it is.
For
That's
the
a different
feeding
pitch.
side of things.
But your pitch to a school is not for money, it's for a facility. Your pitch to the counselor is for something else. Your pitch to the community or parents is something else. So just, it will be similar but not the same. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're quite right, Hussein. Because remember, even with the schools, there's the township school. There's a pitch you're going to be making to the township school, which is going to be different to the pitch you'll be making to the Model C school. If ever what you're trying to drive is collaboration between those two schools, right? So you need to be clear then about, so with the Model C school, you would be wanting access to their facilities, right? But with the township school, you would want their participation, and also so that they are seen as a leader.
Responsible citizens.
Yeah, they're seen as a leader school compared to other schools, because now they've got this sporting program, even though maybe they may not have sporting facilities at the school, but they've got a sporting program. So even with something like a swimming pool, if you want to get the kids to swim, to say that, look, yes, our school does not have a swimming pool, but we've got a swimming program. We've got children that participate in swimming and have won, at district and have won at provincial, but we don't have a swimming pool. But we've got a swimming program that we're doing with Black Collar. And those kids maybe are then swimming either at the Model C school or at another swimming facility that's kind of nearby. So you mustn't be shy to talk about what it is that you do, but also understanding who you're talking to and what you want out of them.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. There was something else I was going to raise earlier on the general and specific. I think we've mentioned that one. Okay, individual. All right. Shazia, any more questions from your side?
No.
I think our understanding of the pitch is going to be key to this one. Yeah. And deliberately, you need to prepare at least 2 or 3 different pitch decks. Not all of them are PowerPoint, and there's nothing wrong by going old school and album and something whatever, because again, depending on your audience, you're talking to things. Be specific about what you want, depending on the audience that you have. But let's emphasize what I've tried to do for the past 3 episodes. Let's get the first one up and running.
Correct.
At whatever level.
Correct.
Just don't make a huge blunder. Don't kill any kids along the way. Don't poison the children.
Yeah.
Don't take them somewhere and drown them. Start off with responsible.
It's so dramatic.
No, because you see, we may be tempted to do something really fancy to show.
Put kids that don't know how
from
to
the township, we can go and do it. Right?
Yeah.
Start off in your local community, and I think if we did a few gala events in the community of some sort, focus on 1 or 2 communities, do a few things. I think it will build you enough traction to get you to the point of being able to pay your own bills in 2 or 3 years' time.
It's a hard slog. It's not an overnight thing. So that's why I was saying that commitment that you show over that 3-year span is kind of important. So maybe if I may talk about our program a little bit at Black Umbrellas, to say that our incubation program is about making sure that we support you from the back office side of things. So in making sure that you are running a sustainable business that can grow their impact within the communities that they serve, right? So meaning that you need to ensure that, for example, your tax compliance is on. I mean, you guys are not thinking tax. You guys now are thinking, the program, you're thinking about the kids, you're thinking about the community, you're not thinking tax compliance, you're not thinking policies and procedures, you're not thinking about cash flow management, you're not thinking about the strategy of your business going forward. You prepared a business plan, but chances are it's not a thing that you're going to be reading every day. you just prepared it because the funders say they want.
It was an assignment.
It was an assignment that you did. A very nice one, by the way, because as I was saying earlier, I thought your guys' business plan was very well thought out. I mean, it was 30 solid pages where you guys went into some depth. Of course, there can always be improvements even there. I think, as I'd mentioned, that, layout, on grammatical issues here and there, spelling here and there. I mean, but those are things that one can fix, right? But it's very important that as the organization that you guys keep revisiting that business plan and making sure that you are doing the tweaks as you go along in your assumptions. Because remember, you are doing it now hypothetically, the business plan. As you are having a lived experience and having done 1 or 2 events, you already know what are some of the realities that you come up against, right? And therefore, now it's important to then revisit your business plan and go change those assumptions or change that part of it to reflect what you guys have personally been able to do or what you have experienced. And therefore, what the challenge is maybe that you've had and you've now had to resolve.
And on that note, viewers and guests, thank you. I hope, I know that you did, but I hope that you benefited from this, from this interaction. It was just over 4 hours that we spent together, it will take you a little bit of time to digest it and to implement it. Just for the purpose of the viewers, for those of you who are aware, Black Umbrellas have entered into an MOU with the Regent Business School, and in May sometime this year, we're hoping to open up and to host Black Umbrellas formally at all our campuses in the country, or at least in Durban, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. So there'll be a formal presence of a Black Umbrella, what we're calling a Black Umbrella Lounge, at all our campuses, or at least at the 3 campuses, meaning that we are bringing the services to the students. And so irrespective of what you are enrolled with and studying at Regent, they will literally be at your doorstep to access for information, to access for guidance. We are hoping that through this arrangement and through this partnership, we'll have a bigger pipeline of entrepreneurs and enterprises that can begin to shape the future of the South African economy for the benefit of the vast majority of our people. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much for participating with us. The competition winners for the competition that we've been running will be announced shortly. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.